The Ribhu Gita, Chapter 26. Undifferentiated abidance in the non-dual nature. Nidaga. In this explanation, I shall tell you about being established in the undivided, which is nothing apart from itself, which is full of itself. May you be in the bliss of being that itself, as is being proclaimed to you. This teaching is highly secret and rare to come by in the Vedas and the scriptures. Moreover, this is rare to come by for even the gods and yogis, and is dear to their hearts. Son, it has been said by those who know fully that being at one with a perfectly full, non-dual Brahma, the mass of existence, consciousness, bliss, the immutable, the self of all, the serene, with the vikalpas of the fickle mind ended, and thought dissolved wholly and indistinguishably herein, like a solute such as cumin seed dissolved in water, is the abidance in that itself. When inquired into deeply, all the multitude of differences will be seen to be never existent. All is the undivided Supreme Brahman, which is not different from the Self, and that am I. Be always correctly practicing in this exalted certitude, and relinquishing all else. Be in the bliss of being ever that itself. That in which all these apparent differences of duality cease to exist when inquired into, in which all cause and effect, even a trace thereof, cease to exist, and in which not a trace of the sphere of duality exists when the mind is merged therein, being that itself. Ever abide in unwavering bliss. That in which there is neither a sankalpa, intention, nor vikalpa, notion, in which there is neither peace nor perturbance, in which there is neither mind nor intellect, in which there is no confusion or conviction, in which there is no bhava or absence of bhava, and in which there is no cognition of duality at all, being as that itself, without the least fear of duality, ever abide in unwavering bliss. That in which there is nothing bad or good, in which there is neither sorrow nor pleasure, in which there is neither silence nor speech, in which there are no pairs of opposites, in which there is no distinction of I or body, and in which there is not the least thing to perceive. Ever abide in bliss, without a trace of sankalpa, intention, in that itself, as that itself. That in which there is no activity of body, in which there is no activity of speech, in which there is no activity of any other kind, in which there is nothing sinful or meritorious, in which there is no trace of desire or its consequences, ever abiding bliss, without a trace of sankalpa, in that itself, as that itself. That in which there is never any imagination, in which there is no one who imagines, in which the universe has not arisen, in which the universe does not exist, in which the universe does not get dissolved, and in which nothing exists at any time. Ever abide in bliss, without a trace of sankalpa, in that itself, as that itself. That in which there is no appearance of Maya, in which there are no effects of Maya, in which there is neither knowledge nor ignorance, in which there is neither Lord nor individual, in which there is neither reality nor unreality, in which there is not the least appearance of the world. Ever abide in bliss, without a trace of sankalpa, in that itself, as that itself. That in which there are no manifold gods, in which there is no worship or service to these, in which there is no differentiation as the triad of forms, in which there is no meditation on the triad of forms, in which there is no form of the Supreme Shiva, and in which there is no meditation on the Supreme Shiva. Ever abide in bliss, without a trace of sankalpa, in that itself, as that itself. That in which there is no action suggesting differentiation, in which there is neither devotion nor knowledge, in which there is no result to be obtained, bereft of which there is no supreme abode, in which there is nothing of means for attainment, in which there is nothing to be attained. Ever abide in bliss, without a trace of sankalpa, in that itself, as that itself. That in which there is nothing of the body or senses or life, in which there is nothing of mind or intellect or thought, in which there is nothing of ego or ignorance, in which there is no experience of these, in which there is no macrocosm or microcosm, and in which there is not a trace of samsara. Ever abide in bliss, without a trace of sankalpa, in that itself, as that itself. That in which there is no desire and no anger, in which there is no covetousness and deluded infatuation, in which there is no arrogance and envious malice, in which there are no other impurities of the mind, and in which there is no delusive notion of bondage, and in which there is no delusive notion of liberation. Ever abide in bliss, without a trace of sankalpa, in that itself, as that itself. That in which there is neither beginning nor end, in which there is no bottom or middle or top, in which there is neither shrine nor deity, in which there is neither charity nor righteous conduct, in which there is neither time nor space, and in which there is no object to be perceived. Ever abide in bliss, without a trace of sankalpa, in that itself, as that itself. That in which the fourfold means for the realization of Brahman do not exist, in which there is no Sadguru, nor diligent disciple, in which there is no illustrious knower or sage, in which there is neither of the two kinds of liberation, Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti, ever abide in bliss, without a trace of sankalpa, in that itself, as that itself. That in which there are no scriptures like Vedas and such, in which there is no inquiring individual, in which there is no confusion and clarification, in which there is no position to be established, in which there is no position to be rejected, in which there is nothing at all except oneself, ever abide in bliss, without a trace of sankalpa, in that itself, as that itself. That in which there is no disputation, in which there are no victories or defeats, in which there is no text or its meaning, in which there are no words with which to give expression, in which there is no differentiation of individual and the Supreme, and in which there are no conditionings, ever abide in bliss, without a trace of sankalpa, in that itself, as that itself. That in which there is no listening or connected practices, in which there is no exalted samadhi, in which there is no differentiation between objects of the same particular group, in which there is no differentiation as affording pleasure or otherwise, and in which there are no words or their meanings, ever abide in bliss, without a trace of sankalpa, in that itself, as that itself. That in which there is no trace of the fear of hell, in which there is no pleasure of heaven either, in which there are no worlds of the Creator or others, in which there are no fruits to be enjoyed there, and in which there are no other worlds, and in which there exists no universe, ever abide in bliss, without a trace of sankalpa, in that itself, as that itself. That in which there are no elements, in which there is not even a trace of any derivatives of the elements, in which there is no egoism or sense of possession, in which there is no trace of the kingdom of the mind, in which there is no defect of attachment, and in which there is not the slightest trace of vikalpa, ever abide in bliss, without a trace of sankalpa, in that itself, as that itself. That in which there is no triad of bodies, gross, subtle, and causal, in which there is no triad of states of existence, waking, dreams, and deep sleep, in which there is no triad of souls, ever free, having attained freedom and bound, in which there is no triad of afflictions caused by bodily and mental factors, caused by external factors, and caused by supernatural and cosmic factors, in which there is no pentad of sheaths, the physical, vital energy, mental, intellectual, and blissful, and in which there is no experience of any of these, ever abide in bliss, without a trace of sankalpa, in that itself, as that itself. That in which there is no sentient being, in which there is no power of veiling, in which there is no array of differences, in which there is no power of false projection, in which there is no delusion of a manifest world, ever abide in bliss, without a trace of sankalpa, in that itself, as that itself. That in which there is nothing of action, in which there is no performer of action, in which arises unsurpassed bliss, which is indeed the changeless state, knowing and realizing which none returns, and becoming which one is freed from bondage of worldly existence, ever abide in bliss, without a trace of sankalpa, in that itself, as that itself. That by realizing which, and in bliss of which, all other joys appear to be the joys of that. That after realizing which, with very firm certitude as oneself, nothing else will be something apart. That by realizing which, with very firm certitude as oneself, all kinds of jivas will attain liberation, ever abide in bliss, without a trace of sankalpa, in that itself, as that itself. That which, by knowing firmly as oneself, one has no need to know anything else in the least. By knowing which, with full conviction as oneself, all is known forever. And by knowing which as oneself in complete certitude, all actions are accomplished in their entirety, ever abide in bliss, without a trace of sankalpa, in that itself, as that itself. That which can easily be attained in an unimpeded manner by the certitude that I am Brahman, in which, by quiescence after such certitude, one completely full, ineffable bliss will reveal itself, and by merger of the mind in which, one will be joined with unsurpassed, incomparable contentment, ever abide in bliss, without a trace of sankalpa, in that itself, as that itself. That, by merger of the mind in which, all sorrows will cease to exist in the least, by merger of the mind in which neither you, nor I, nor anything else will exist, and by merger of the mind in which all these differences will disappear, ever abide in bliss, without a trace of sankalpa, in that itself, as that itself. That, by merger of the mind in which one abides as oneself with no sense of duality, by merger of the mind in which not a trace of anything separate will remain, and by merger of the mind in which incomparable bliss alone will reveal itself, ever abide in bliss, without a trace of sankalpa, in that itself, as that itself. That which is, indeed, of the nature of undifferentiated existence, which is, indeed, of the nature of undifferentiated consciousness, which is, indeed, of the nature of undifferentiated bliss, which is, indeed, of the nature of non-duality, which is, indeed, not different from the Self, and which, indeed, is of the undivided Supreme Brahman, in the firm certitude that I am that, abide in the bliss of ever being that itself. That which, indeed, is I and you, which indeed is everyone else, which indeed is the substratum of all, which indeed is one without a trace of anything else, which indeed is utmost purity, and which indeed is the undivided, complete, perfect fullness. By the conviction that I am that, be in the bliss of ever being that itself. That in which there are no varying modes, in which there is not the least thing different, in which all egoism is extinguished, in which all desires or imaginings get destroyed, in which mind and such perish, in which all delusion is destroyed, by the firm conviction that I am that, be in the bliss of ever being that itself. That in which the body and others cannot be discerned, in which there is no perception of manifestation whatsoever, in which the thought itself is destroyed, in which merges the jiva, in which all imaginings get dissolved, and in which even certitude disappears. By the deep conviction that I am that, be in the bliss of ever being that itself. That in which all meditation is merged, in which all yoga is obliterated, in which all ignorance is dead, in which all knowledge is nullified, in which there are no interactions involved, in which is the state of absolute truth, by the very firm conviction that I am that, be in the bliss of ever being that itself. Merging in which one attains happiness always, merging in which one never experiences sorrow, merging in which one perceives nothing, merging in which one never takes birth at all, merging in which one never experiences a sense of being separate, merging in which one abides as the Supreme Para-Brahman itself. By the deep conviction of I am that, be in the bliss of ever being that itself. That which is verily the nature of the Supreme Brahman, which is verily the nature of the Supreme Shiva, which is verily of the nature of the Supreme State, which is verily of the nature of the knowledge of reality, and which verily is of the nature of the Supreme Truth. That indeed am I. By such conviction, be in the bliss of ever being that itself. That which is verily of the nature of the pure Absolute, which verily is of the nature of a mass of bliss, which verily is of the nature of the subtle Supreme, which verily is of the nature of the non-dual, which verily is of the nature of self-luminous, and which verily is of the nature of the meaning of the undifferentiated. That indeed am I, by such conviction, be in the bliss of ever being that itself. That which is verily of the nature of truth, which is verily of the nature of the peaceful Absolute, which verily is of the nature of the eternal, which verily is of the nature of the attributeless, which verily is of the nature of the Self, which verily is of the nature of the undivided Absolute. That indeed am I. By such conviction, be in the bliss of ever being that itself. That indeed which constitutes the entirety of all interactions, that even the least of which cannot indeed be conveyed by the highest truth, which indeed is the existence, consciousness, bliss, which indeed is ever peaceful, from which indeed there is nothing apart, and which indeed abides self-existent, all by itself. That indeed am I. By such conviction, be in the bliss of ever being that itself. Thus have I explained to you, Nadaga, the state of being established as that itself, without any duality. You shall enjoy perpetual bliss by attaining this state, by constant, continuous, changeless certitude of the undifferentiated Absolute. There are no more miseries of mundane existence at all, at any time in the future, for you are Brahman alone. Casting aside all impure vasanas, by the pristine tendency left by the practice of the absolute existence, consciousness, bliss is all and that I ever am, and subsequently effacing even that tendency, Son, you will be established in the perfect full absorption in and as the non-dual Supreme Brahman itself, and attain the liberation of being the undivided, undifferentiated One. All impure vasanas are a state of the mind. The vasanas about the pure Absolute are also a state of the mind. The Supreme has no such tendencies. Hence, be established in this state, without any vasanas of the mind, whether considered pure or considered impure, like a motionless piece of stone or wood, and without any strain, be in bliss. Having disassociated from the imaginings of all other thoughts, by the conviction of being the undivided Absolute, and forgetting even the said conviction of being the Absolute, you yourself abide as the perfectly full Supreme Brahman. Even if a great sinner in this world hears this explanation now proclaimed, and understands it, he shall, rid of all the great sins of his ego, abide as the nature of the undivided, undifferentiated Absolute. The endless Vedas, in revealing here and there the means of meditation for mental purification, have indicated only rock-like, motionless merger with and absorption in the unafflicted mass of bliss, the undivided, completely, perfectly full Shiva, as the means for the happy liberation of those who are mentally purified. Therefore one can here attain the undifferentiated liberation by abiding as just that itself, and with a purified mind arising out of the practice of the meditation that whatever is known as Shiva, and that Shiva am I. Whatever stated here is the truth. Thus the Sage Ribhu explained in full to Nadaga the abidance in the true state. It is the undivided form of our Supreme Lord in a state of sublime, joyous dance that says, by the conviction that I am ever the reality, which is existence, consciousness, bliss, and by the state of abiding at one with that, being that itself, the empty bondage of the world can be cut asunder and pure liberation attained.